All right, let's begin. Quiet down. Shh, shh. Quiet down. All right, here we go. Exercise 6D. Exercise 6D. We're working on solving cubic equations. We're working on solving cubic equations. Now, every skill that you've learned in quadratics and cubics is all about learning to factorize it to its factors. Once you get to linear factors, then you're able to solve. So that's your first skill. Now 6B and 6C, 6B and 6C, the aim is for you to learn how to factorize. So that's why I said you had to learn Felix.
I'll show you how. I'm not going to
I'll just wait for Ian. Sorry, Ian. Just get yourself prepared. Like, obviously, I'm trying to start class. Quite an exercise. All right, here we go. 6B, 6C were your fundamental skills in order to do 6D. So you can't solve unless you can factorize, and that's the goal for every one of them. Now I'm going to go through some examples on the different types of equations you might get, and then how you're going to factorize each one to solve. Ultimately, you want to be able to do what we did in 6C. They give you a cubic equation, you factorize that, and then solve. That's the goal. Okay, so when you start off with 6D, you'll find that the first questions are easy. See, all these questions here, they're all equal to 0, and they're all factorized for you already. That's easy to do. It's the later questions of 6D that we want to be able to do, which is they give you a full cubic equation, nothing to divide with. You have to use 6E to find out what factor you get. Use 6B to cubic divide, and then use 6D to solve. Okay, so every one of it's a stepwise process. That's why you have to get 6B and 6C. Yeah. Now, with these questions here, they're easy to work with because all of them are all factorized already. They're all in its linear factors. And we know from quadratics that once you factorize that into bracket times bracket times bracket, remember, if they're all equal to 0, you can use null factor law. Because we're saying, if I have a number times a number times a number, and it equals to 0, logically, one of these numbers have to be 0. That's the logic, yeah? So if one of these numbers was 0, it could be A, it could be B, or it could be C. And that's the logic with the brackets. You see, with the brackets, you're saying x minus 1 multiplied to x plus 2 multiplied to x minus 4 is equal to 0. Then by the same logic, one of these numbers have to be 0. It could be x minus 1 to equal to 0. It could be x plus 2 to equal to 0. Or it could be x minus 4 to equal to 0. We don't know which one. But if we hypothetically said, let's say it was this one, then what would x have to be to make this entire number equal to 0? 1. Yeah, logically. Yeah, so 1 minus 1 will give you 0. So that's how you would do it. You can either trial and error there, or you can solve it. You can say x minus 1 equal to 0, add 1 on both sides, and you get x equals 1. You solve this one, you got, well, maybe x plus 2 was meant to equal to 0. Then what would x have to be? Subtract 2 on both sides, negative 2. And then finally, x minus 4, if it were to equal to 0, x has to be 4. But don't lose track of what you're trying to do. Remember, in quadratics, I said to you the most important thing is sketching. What are you actually solving for here? X equals 1, negative 2, and 4. What is that actually telling you? X-intercept. You're right. Because what you're actually doing is you're letting y equal to 0. You'll be like quadratic, yeah. So when you let y equal to 0, you're actually solving for x, and those x's are your coordinates for your x-axis intercept. So what you're really saying is for this particular graph, it crosses at 1, 0, negative 2, 0, and 4, 0. And that's what you'll be using for 6F and onwards when you're sketching. You've got to realize you're actually just solving for your x-intercepts in 6D. Okay? Now, these ones are easy. A was easy. C should be easy as well. It's the same thing. 2x minus 1 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. 3x plus 2 equals 0. How would you do B? What would you do for B? So let's have a look at B. B is x minus 4 squared x minus 6 equals 0. How do I solve this? Fantastic. Now, later on, you don't have to write it out like this, but it makes it clearer. See, when you say x minus 4 squared, it just means x minus 4 times x minus 4. And you're back to the same thing. Technically, these two answers are the same answers. So if you were to solve this now, what would x have to equal to, Will? If I was solving this one? 4. What about the next one? Yeah. That's why it makes sense that you don't actually have to worry about the squared. You can ignore that and just say, well, x minus 4, what would it have to be to equal 0? And you know it's 4, because there's no point doing it twice. You already know the answer is going to be the same. So it's x equals 4, and what about the other one? 6. Now, is that easy? Yeah? So question 1 is already factorized for you. Now we go to question 2. How is this different? Is they're not exactly factorized yet, but it is an easier way to factorize this. So let's have a look at question 2. Why is this harder than question 1? Is because you don't have the brackets. But what's nice about this? What is nice about it? Something's very obvious about it. How is this different to the questions I gave to you in the last session? Say it again? You can factorize directly, but no, that's not what I'm looking for. Something else. What do you notice about question 2 that makes it easier than, let's say, question, well, no. Fantastic. See, if you look at this problem here, every term has an x. See, that's nice. Whereas normally a cubic equation has a constant number without an x. That's a problem, because there's nothing in common about them all. But in this case here, they all have a commonality of x. Every one of them has an x in it. So that's why what you can do in 2a, you can say, let's take out x as a common factor first. You get x squared minus 2x minus 8. And this is nice, because you already factorized this, and this is a quadratic factor. Now, if this is quadratic, we can use what you learnt in chapter 4 to factorize this. Now, let's quickly factorize x squared minus 2x minus 8. What does that factorize to? Can I please have Matt? Perfect. -2 and +4, but in this case, -2 and 4 will give you a +2, but I want a -2, so what would it have to be? Fantastic. So it'll be +2 and a -4, so it's -4 and +2. Okay? So now that you've factorized it into this step, now it's easy. See, now this goes back to question 1 again. You've got your brackets. X can either equal to 0, or -2, or 4. See how easy it is? So 1 and 2, your goal is to factorize it into its linear factors, then solve. Yes?
Wait. There's still 3 x.
Yep. This one is like saying this number times this number times this number has to equal to 0. So you got either this equals 0, or you have x plus 2 equal to 0, which actually works out to be -2, or you have x minus 4 equal to 0, which works out to be x equals 4. So you have 3 x-intercepts there. Okay? All right, now let's work on to something a bit more tricky now. Let's do this one. Can you see the difference with question 4 and 1 and 2? What's different about these? What's different about question 4 as opposed to 1 and 2? Yes, Felix? Yeah. See, now you can't take out a factor of x for all of them. There's only these two with a factor of x. This is a problem. So what do you have to do? 6b, 6c. So what you learnt with me in 6b and 6c, that's what you're doing here. So let's do the first one. Let's do the first one. You got x cubed minus 19x plus 30. Your first step is to use factor theorem because you don't have any factors yet. You don't know any linear factors to divide. You don't know what to divide. So 6c allowed you to find one factor. And our goal is to find the first factor by trial and error. Now the number that we trial and error, which number do we use again? Where do we get our factors to trial and error?
30.
30. It's the last number, the constant. The one without an x, we've got 30. So you're going to try out that 30. Factors of 30. I've already worked it out for you there. You got 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, 30 there. And those are the numbers you're going to trial and error until you get to what? 7. Remainder 0. So you're using remainder theorem until you get 0. Now, it is difficult. Most of the time, your answers either be 1, 2, 3. They're not going to try to make it any larger because then it takes too long to do. So it's usually 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so you got to try out positive 1, negative 1, positive 2, negative 2, positive 3, negative 3. One of it will be correct. Okay? So, let's trial and error. If it was positive 1, what do? How do you find the remainder? Substitute it in. Factor theorem. Will. Focus. X equals 1, so in 6C, if you want to trial out x equals 1 and find the remainder, substitute it in. So in A, I'm going to have 1 cubed minus 19 times 1 plus 30. Now just looking at that, would that give me 0? No. It's logical that you're not going to get 0 from that, so it can't be. What if I tried negative 1? If it was negative 1, I get negative 1 cubed minus 19 times negative 1 plus 30. Will this give me 0? No. It's not going to give me 0. What about 2 now? X equals 2. So you get 2 cubed minus 19 times 2 plus 30. What about this one? Okay, so let's work it out. 2 cubed, which is 8 minus 19, or 19 times 2, or double 19?
37.
No. Negative 38. And then you got plus 30, and it just so happens 30 plus 8 is 38. 38 minus 38 is 0. Now you found your factor. Or as in you found the number that gives you a remainder of 0. So what's the factor? Read it out to me. X minus 2. So if x equals 2, how do you know what the factor is? Rearrange it. Minus 2 on both sides, and you get your factor is x minus 2. Now that you got one of the factors, remember you're trying to factorize this equation here. You just found out the first factor is x minus 2. So how do you find out the other two factors? What do you do again? How do you find the other two factors? You found out the first one through trial and error, factor theorem. How do you find those next two? Divide. Exercise 6b, cubic division, allows you to find your quadratic factor. So here we go. Let's practice our 6b again. And I'll write it down here. You're trying to find x cubed minus 19x plus 30. You want to divide this by x minus 2. That's what you want. You want to get the quadratic factor. So, Will, since you've learned this now, you can guide me through this. Yes, you can. Let's do it. Yep.
Alright. So you're going to do x.
Yep.
That's x squared.
Good. X squared.
Do something. No, you got to do a question. Can you not distract me?
Don't distract Will. I just want to know if Will's got it. You're going to do it.
Alright, you got to put the x cubed down the bottom.
Yep.
And then you got to do it with the 2 above.
Yep.
No, you got to do yeah, that.
Yep.
Just get rid of them. Get them out.
Get them out.
Get rid of them.
Okay, yep.
Alright, so that's 0 obviously.
Yep.
And that's 17x.
No.
Oh, I did this differently, so yeah, I made it different. I did 0.
Oh, yep, yep. No, that's how I would do it too. I would have a 0.
So that's 21x. Wait.
Or,
Negative 21.
okay, good. Good question. So, how Will would have done it, this is what Will would have done, and that's how I encourage you guys to do it as well. Instead of having, you know how each column, it was x cubed, and then x squared, then x, then constant, right? We're missing the x squared column, but that's because it doesn't have an x squared. So what you can do, which is what Will's tutor said, you can add in a column if you want, but you just got to make sure it's a 0 column. So what you can do, is you can say it's 0, and the other one was minus 19x and plus 30. See, if you do it that way, it's more logical. There's more sequence to it. So now, yeah, you're right. You couldn't do anything with the x squared. So really, it's actually 0, nothing, no x squares, minus a negative 2x squared will give you positive 2x squared. Two negatives, yeah.
Oh, you're right.
So positive 2x squared, and then you follow the same pattern, drop down the value. Yeah? Now you don't have to put the 0 in. If you knew that beforehand, you can just ignore that and just drop down the negative 19x. Yeah? So now you follow on to the next step. Find the line. So if it's x squared, what would the next line be? You got x squared as the first line, now we're doing it again? No, just anyone now.
2x.
Good. It becomes 2x, so positive 2x. That gives you the 2x squared, which we're going to get rid of. Now you got 2x times the negative 2 over here, which makes it minus 4x. And as Will said before, just get rid of them, right? So that becomes 0. And let's work this one out. Negative 19 of these x's minus, there's two negatives here, so that becomes plus. Negative 19 plus 4 of these x's gives you? Negative 15. Negative 15x, drop down the last term, plus 30. Start again. What should the next number be up here?
15.
Fantastic, negative 15. Negative 15 times the x gives you negative 15x. And then finally, negative 15 times negative 2, positive 30. And get rid of it. Yeah? So we get rid of it, and it just so happens 30 minus 30 is also 0. So you got a remainder 0, which makes sense because you said it was meant to give you a remainder of 0, and it does. Got a remainder of 0 there. So this is my quadratic equation: x squared plus 2x minus 15. I need to factorize that to get my 2 linear factors up here. So, oh, it is. That's why the hardest part in quadratics is just this, 6b, 6c. You get your head around it, everything else is meant to be straightforward. It's like your quadratics. So here is your skill, 6b and 6c. Yeah? All right, let's work this out. X squared is 2x minus 15. What's that factorized to? So use our quadratic skills. X squared plus 2x minus 15. What's that factorized to?
X plus 5, X minus 3.
Good. X plus 5 and?
X minus 3.
X minus 3. Fantastic. 5 minus 3 gives you 2, and 5 times negative 3 is 15. Now, you haven't answered the question yet. You've just done 6c. You factorized it. So what does x equal to? Because remember, it's equal to 0. You want to solve for x. What is it equal to, Felix?
2, 5.
Good. X equals 2, negative 5, and 3. That's the skills I want you to be able to do from 6D. Does that make sense there? Cool. So you got 3 skills here. Factor theorem, cubic division, null factor law. Those are the 3. That's what 6D is doing. So 6C, 6B, 6D. They're all in one question. That's why it's tedious. The longest skill is this one. That's why I said over your holidays, I wanted you to do 6B, because that's the important part. You don't get that part, you can't do the rest. So 6B was the most important. So if you're falling behind, get 6B down. 6B is what will allow you to do the question. 6A is just expanding. You can all do that.
How do you do that? I mean, Lauren.
Okay, there we go. I'm going to leave it there. You're going to have about a nice half an hour to do 6D, and then I'll just talk a bit about 6D, and that's it. So I'm going to stop the video, but I want you to start on exercise 6D. You either start on these questions, and that's the nice ones, the ones where you actually work through every skill, or you start off easy and do 1 and 2. Okay, yeah. I would start at 4, is what I would do. Okay.